So I officially have 1 week under my belt of living exclusively in Ubuntu Linux. What are my first impressions? Well, let's get to it. Now, when I say exclusively living in Linux, I mean using it as my daily driver on my laptop here. Of course, I still have my Nexus 4 Android phone, and I wouldn't be able to edit these videos and post them if I didn't use my Windows 7 PC build. But for my everyday computing needs, and if I'm working from home, I'm using Ubuntu 12.10 on my Dell Latitude D630. So the first thing I want to do is get you up to speed on how Ubuntu works on this machine. Now, if you remember, in this series of videos, I did an unboxing of this D-Link Wireless N nub, and it works really well on this computer. As I said, the reason I got it is because it works out of the box with Linux. But the only problem I encountered with it was if I'm using the laptop and then I want to close the lid without turning the computer off, basically putting it in a suspended mode, and then I want to use it later again and I open it up, it won't recognize the wireless dongle. So I have to reboot the computer. So it's kind of a pain. So I might as well just shut it down every time I don't want to use it instead of just putting it in a suspended mode. So what I ended up doing is using the onboard wireless card on this device. And it actually works really well. I don't know for sure what exactly the wireless card in there is, but I'm assuming it's G wireless. Probably B and G, just because of the age of the computer. But again, it's just an assumption. I actually never verified what the card is in this device. So I won't be using this dongle anymore in my Linux experiment here, but I'm going to hold on to it because I never know when I'm going to need it. Now I just want to cover one thing that I was pleasantly surprised with the hardware, and that's the D-Bay. That's the D-Bay there. Now right now, the D-Bay has a DVD rewritable drive in it, but you can actually swap these things out. You can use this D-Bay for an extra battery or even a second hard drive. Now you're going to need a separate caddy for each of those, and you pull these out by pressing this button here, and then you can pull this straight out. So there you go, optical drive. And then you have an empty bay where you can put in a caddy that will hold a second internal hard drive or another battery. Very cool. And it slides back in sort of like an old Nintendo cartridge. There we go. And lock back into place. Now apparently all these years I didn't know what I was missing. These business laptops are far superior to their consumer relatives. I love how modular this thing is and how easy it is to tinker with it. In fact, going forward, I don't think I'd get anything but a business laptop. So let's open this thing up. Now I'm not quite sure I went over this in my previous video when I unboxed this laptop, but over here you have some indicator lights. You have your Wi-Fi indicator, your power indicator, your drive activity indicator, and you actually also have a Bluetooth indicator over there. Now I'm not sure if this device is equipped with Bluetooth, but I know it's not working in Ubuntu Linux. So again, it's quite possible that it's not even on this device. But not really a big deal because I don't use Bluetooth on my computers much at all. Now before we fire this thing up, the one thing I want to discuss about the hardware itself is the trackpad. Now obviously it is a smaller trackpad, which some people might dislike. For me, I don't really care too much. The one thing I wish this laptop had was a multi-touch trackpad because I like to scroll up and down with a 2-finger scroll. But fortunately you can still scroll with this trackpad by swiping your finger on the right-hand side. Also, you can swipe from right to left on the bottom if your content is larger than the window you have open. I haven't really gotten used to this track point nub here. I know a lot of people like it. I don't have any feelings for it one way or another. I'm just used to using a trackpad, so that's what I use. Now over here on top of the keyboard you have a mic there. So that's nice if you want to do voice commands in Google Chrome. You can do that on this device and you can do it through Ubuntu. The other thing I wish this device had was a webcam, and obviously it doesn't have one up here. Not a deal breaker, but it would be nice to have. Of course, I love the matte screen, far superior to the glossy screens you get on most consumer laptops. Now the one last thing before we fire this thing up is here on the bottom of the screen here. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a little transparent square of plastic, and that is your ambient light sensor. It doesn't seem to be functioning within Linux, but it's not a big deal to me. If I find that the screen is too bright in low lighting, I can always adjust it manually. So let's jump into my actual feelings on Linux. And the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to fire this up, and I'm not going to put any edits in here so you can see how Ubuntu Linux boots up on this device, and also how fast it takes. So let's press the power button here. And as you can see, the indicators on the right-hand side, you have your power indicator and then your hard drive indicator pops on. There's the Ubuntu splash screen. Got the mouse there, and there we go. Not a speed demon, but not a slug either. Very usable. Now I have this laptop set that it will boot up without a password. And we have some dialog boxes here that you can already see, but we'll get into that in a second. So like I was saying, I have this set up where I don't have to put a password in to log in. If you feel that your data is sensitive on your computer, obviously you'd want to put a passcode on there. Now these dialog boxes, the first one that popped up is this one up here that says enter password to unlock your login keyring. And that basically is the encryption on your device. So I looked it up online, and there's really a couple of ways that I could avoid this popping up. One of which is to actually have a login when you boot up the computer. And come to think of it, I probably should put a login because basically I'm logging in here anyway. The second dialog box here is a system program problem detected. Now you can report the problem or cancel the problem. This pops up periodically, not always when I'm booting up the device, but I've seen it before when I've been using the device. Personally, I haven't seen any impact on the system. I don't know what the problem is. I could probably delve a little bit deeper. But again, this is my first week using this device, and I'm just getting my legs under me with Linux. Now, obviously, I've used Ubuntu Linux before. I have videos on my channel dating a couple of years back, almost 3 years back, triple booting a MacBook with OS X, Windows 7, and Ubuntu Linux. So I've used it before, but I haven't lived in it. And again, that's what this series of videos is all about. So this problem, I could report the problem. I'm not going to report it right now. I'm just going to hit cancel here, and everything's going to function properly. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put in my password up here, and let me do that, and I'll join up with you when that's done. Now this is Ubuntu 12.10. Now if you know anything about Android, you know that their releases are named after sweet treats. So the current version of Android is Jelly Bean. Ubuntu has been doing the same thing, except they've been doing it a lot longer, and they name their releases after animals. So you get an adjective and then an animal. And that's what this guy is here. It's a little representation of the current release, 12.10, and it's called Quantal Quetzal. And that's a Quetzal right there. Now, I've done some customizations on my desktop. On the left-hand side, you have your dock. And normally you have the whole suite of LibreOffice programs here. I pretty much only use the word processing program. So that's the one I have there. Mostly for my spreadsheets and whatnot, I use Google Docs. Now over here you have your universal search. So if you want to search for anything on the device, you click on here and you can look anything up. Very cool. Now I have 4 web browsers installed on this laptop here. I have Chromium, I have Firefox, I have Chrome, and I have Opera. The device ships with Firefox. And I like Firefox. It's just that all my bookmarks are in Chrome. And of course I could import all my bookmarks to Firefox, but I don't know of any way to keep them synced other than doing it manually. So I prefer to work within Chrome. Now if you don't know what Chromium is, it's the open source variant of Chrome. Basically has the same logo except it's all in blues, whereas your Chrome logo is colored. And then I have Opera down here. Now I have a lot of Google accounts, and the way I work within that is that I tend to use multiple browsers. I know there are other ways around it, but that's just the way I do it. So that allows me to live within one Gmail account in one browser and then move to the next if I have to open up another Gmail browser. For the most part, I only see myself using Chromium, Firefox, and Chrome. I don't use Opera that much, but it's there if I need it. Now, there's a couple different ways that you can put programs onto Ubuntu. One of which is going down to the Ubuntu Software Center down here. I'm going to click on that, and it's basically a software store or an app store for those of you who are more used to the mobile computing world. So you have the availability here to look up all different kinds of software, and you can see what's installed on the computer. There's different genres, different categories of apps, and you can search them here on this side. Some are for purchase, some are free. I haven't delved too much into it, but this is how I downloaded Chromium onto this device, because again, it only ships with Firefox. So I downloaded and installed Chromium through the Ubuntu Software Center. Chrome and Opera, I just went to the web pages and they automatically took you through an installation process. Now, some things about Linux are easy. Just if you're used to Windows or OS X, you click on an installer and it will install the program for you, no problem. There are other programs that it's a little bit more difficult to install them. And I've run into a couple of those problems myself. But the Ubuntu Software Center is there to try and streamline this process for you. But just note that some of the things you can download from the Ubuntu Software Center take a little bit more than clicking on an installer to install. Let's close this out here. Now, I've run into a couple of interesting problems using Chrome. Now, again, like I said, Chrome is my go-to browser. So I'm going to click on that and we're going to launch that, and you can see how long it takes to launch Chrome on here. And this machine is a Core 2 Duo. I think it's 2.2 gigahertz per core, and it has 2 gigs of RAM on it. So here we go, we have Chrome, and as you see up here, it is not my default browser. And that's primarily for one reason. Now, I spend a good chunk of my time reading tech blogs on my laptop, and a lot of those times you're going to run into a video that accompanies a posting. Well, there's a strange bug in Chrome that didn't exist when I initially installed Ubuntu on here, but appeared after an update happened. Now, the OS will notify you when you're going to have updates. So down here on the dock, there's nothing here right now, but down here on the bottom, it'll show you, hey, you have such and such amount of updates, and you can choose to update your system. After one of those updates, I had a problem in Chrome, and I'm going to show you that problem right now. All right, what you see here is sort of like a confetti artifacting going on videos. Now, it does not happen on the pre-roll ads on videos, but it does happen on the content itself, which is very strange. And this will happen throughout the entire video, and it won't clear up. I've read on a couple of forums that this is a problem that other people have had too. But as you can see here, it runs very smooth and full screen. So very capable here. Let's turn up the sound a little bit more. So let's get out of here. So this is a problem within Chrome. But strangely enough, this problem doesn't exist in Chromium. Now again, Chromium is the open source version of Chrome, so it's going to look the same. But you can tell it's Chromium by looking at the Chromium logo down there. So let me go into YouTube and show you that there are no problems playing video through Chromium. Okay, in this video we're going to do an unboxing of a brand So there you go.
HP.
Let me turn the sound down here. Perfectly fine. You can see that the video is playing and there are absolutely no artifacts. So let me bring it up a little further and get to the intro sequence here. And plays perfectly. Looks good. I think I have it on a low quality. Let me put it on 720p here. Plays really well. No artifacting. So I have Chromium set as my default browser. Unfortunately, up top here, you'll see that there are no tabs. Of course, this browser does have tab browsing, but it doesn't, like when you launch Google Chrome, you have these tabs up top here. On Chromium, you don't. Now, there's a way in the settings to change that. So right here it says on startup, open the new tab page. That's what I want. So I click on that button there. Now, as you can see up here, I already have the tabs up there. But when I launch this browser, I want it to automatically have the tabs up there. So I have that clicked, and as you'll notice, it auto-saves, or at least should auto-save. So let's exit those settings and exit out of Chromium and relaunch Chromium. But wait, there's no new tab up here. And that's because for some reason it's a bug. I read up online on this. So I go back to my settings here, and as you see, the radio button that I clicked is unclicked. For some reason, there's no way to save it. So there's no way to alter your settings in Chromium, which is too bad. So between the two browsers, I can get everything I want to do done. Except when I put a listing up on eBay, and then I want to use Firefox. Because for some reason, eBay works better with Firefox than it works with Chrome. And that's not only true on Linux, it's true on Windows as well. So like I said, I can get everything done between the two browsers. I just wish I didn't have to jump between two browsers. But not a big deal. Now I have the Ubuntu dock at the default size, but you can enlarge it or make it smaller to whatever your liking is. You can also hide it. You can do an auto hide, which I do sometimes with Windows. I have the auto hide of the taskbar on the bottom, depending on the screen real estate. I find with it being vertical like this, I don't really need to do the auto hide on it. So let's round out what's on my dock here. This is the home folder. I'm going to click on that and it'll bring up everything that's on my computer. Easy access. Next thing down here is Ubuntu One. That's online storage. I haven't really tried that out yet, so I really don't have much to say about that. Down here is Ubuntu One Music. You can actually purchase music from the Ubuntu store. And if you really like Ubuntu, I definitely suggest that you support Ubuntu by purchasing music through their store. Alright, now down here you also have a Workspace Switcher. So you actually have 4 home screens that you can work on. So that's really nice if you have a lot of programs open, you can have a dedicated workspace for each of them. On the very bottom you have your trash can, and then up here you have your system settings. And this is going to allow you to tweak your machine. And let me just pull up the details of this machine so you can get the exact specs on it. It's 2 gigs of memory, Intel Core 2 Duo CPU T7500 at 2.2 gigahertz per core, and again 2 cores. It's a 32-bit operating system, and my hard disk space is 116 gigabytes. Let me go back to the settings here, and I do want to cover one last thing in this video. Now remember, this is an ongoing project, so every week I'm going to come back and report back to you any new things I found and what I like or dislike. Now of course you'll notice here you have a Bluetooth icon here. If I click it, it says it doesn't find anything. So again, it's quite possible that this device is not equipped with Bluetooth. Not a big deal. But the last thing I do want to talk about are printers. About a year or a year and a half ago, I really tried to live within Linux. I tried this once before, and I did it in a dual boot situation. At the time, I couldn't get it to work with my Wi-Fi printer. And that was really the reason why I had to go back to Windows. So I found I went back to Windows and hardly ever went into Ubuntu. Because for my case, I actually use my printer a lot for work. So I need an operating system that I can easily print from several times throughout the day. I don't want to have to think when I can print and when I can't print and have to schedule that. That's one of my gripes with tablets. You have to kind of think in advance. Well, what am I going to use this for? I want an all-purpose device that I can use for everything that I need it for. Now, I'm going to click on printers here, and I already have this set up. But this device recognized my Canon printer, and it blew my mind because that was the one thing holding me back from using Ubuntu on a daily basis. So I was very happy about that. And it's very easy to set up a printer. All you need to do is go into your system settings here and go to Add here, and it'll look up your available printers. And the printer that I have is a network printer. So I just go in here, and the setup took me maybe a minute. Very easy. Now the one thing I haven't figured out yet is the scanning. Fortunately, I scan maybe once a month, so it's not that big of a deal. And my PC build is a Windows machine, so I can easily do that one scan I have to do per month on that machine. So it's not a big deal. But on Ubuntu, you have a thing that's called Simple Scan here. And it's supposed to work with your scanner. Now my printer is a printer scanner fax machine, and I haven't been able to get this to work as of yet. I'm going to have to look into it a little bit deeper. But again, not a big deal. So after my first week of using Ubuntu Linux on this machine, which is older hardware, I'm very happy with it. I like it a lot. Now obviously there are a couple of bugs with the browsers, like I mentioned. At the top of the video you saw an error message, but again that doesn't affect the actual functioning of the computer. I've never had it crash on me. It works well on these modest specs, and I didn't have to hunt down one driver at all to make this work. It all worked out of the box. Now there is somewhat of a learning curve, not a huge learning curve, but there's a little bit of a learning curve when you jump into Ubuntu Linux. So there's some things like installing some programs, not all, but some programs that are a little bit more difficult than what you might be used to on another operating system. But all in all, I'm very impressed, and I really like it, and I could definitely see myself using this indefinitely as my daily computer. I don't miss anything from Windows on this computer, because I'm not the type of person that ever games on my laptop. I always do that on my PC build, the few times that I do play a game. Likewise, I don't video edit on my laptop. I used to when I had a MacBook, and for the record, I was a Mac user for 8 years, so I'm very well versed with OS X. But editing on my PC build is far superior to editing on my old MacBook. So for my habits, I tend to use my PC build exclusively for gaming and video editing. If I want to surf the internet, if I want to get work done, I do it on my laptop. And Ubuntu 12.10 meets all of my needs for what I use it for. Now that's not to say you can't edit video on Ubuntu or you can't play games on Ubuntu. Steam, the biggest PC gaming platform, is coming to Ubuntu. There's certain programs that you can edit video on, and in fact I did a video on how to edit video on Ubuntu Linux. So it can be done, but my current operating system of choice for those functions is Windows 7 on my PC build. But I really like Ubuntu, and I'm already making plans on how I'm going to dual boot my PC build so I can try out Steam on that device. So that pretty much does it for this video. If you have any questions or comments, please post them down below. If you like what you see, please subscribe. And as always, if you want to help out my channel, give me a thumbs up or favorite this video. I've got 1 week down, but several weeks to go, and I'll keep you posted every week on my journey of living with Linux. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.